Welcome, everybody. This is TransParents. We are back again. We took a little pause for a week or two, but we have finally returned. My name is Amber. My pronouns are she, her. You can find me at TikTok at Moonchild77. This is my lovely, that way this week, co-hostess. I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hey, hello. I am Jenni. My pronouns are also she, her, hers. And you can find me on TikTok and Blue Sky and Instagram at TransLovingMama.
Welcome. And so this week we have a special guest, Carrie, with us, and she is a mom of a trans child out of Wisconsin. And so we've been kind of covering different stories, different experiences, and everybody's experience is different, including the parent's journey is different and what they have to face, the decisions that they have to make for their kids. And so we had heard about Carrie's story. She kind of reached out, and we decided this was another one that we needed to highlight. So welcome, Carrie. And if you want to give us like a brief little intro of who you are and I guess what brings you here today.
Sure. I have a trans daughter. She came out when she was about 9 years old, although there were many signs along the way that she didn't feel quite comfortable as a boy. So she's now 13. It's been a journey for sure, but I found you guys and agreed to participate, and I'm looking forward to the episode.
Awesome. I think so for everybody here, Carrie is out of Wisconsin. And so we know we've covered here several episodes before on executive orders and on anti-trans legislation. And we know that there have been several put out in Wisconsin, but we also know that your governor, Tony Evers, has really kind of pushed back and fought for trans rights within your state. And I guess where does that stand right now? Like, I'm pretty sure there is is there a transgender affirming care ban in Wisconsin currently? Or did he veto that one?
Not a state ban, no. So there was some confusion with the federal ban. So similar to what happened in New York, where hospitals or centers that provided care suddenly stopped because they were worried about funding or retribution. And then we followed that with the particular place we were going to. But there was another one in Wisconsin that was still providing it. But then the one we were going to decided to reverse and get us in more quickly. So we were able to get the care she needed with a puberty blocker implant in time. And so that happened, fortunately. And
awesome.
But yeah, we don't have any current issues on it through the legislation. There was one that got approved, but then Evers, he vetoed it. So
vetoed it.
Yep, there were a couple relating to sports and transgender affirming care, but those were vetoed, and we don't have the numbers for the supermajority to override his veto as of now.
Excellent. I know in Jenni's state, I'm pretty sure it's just all red. And last year we had like a supermajority here in North Carolina. I know that has changed in our last election cycle. So thankfully we don't have the super block that was in place before. And I guess as far as like when you're looking at what's going on with your child now, how has that impacted her care and you as a parent?
Yeah. So her care, it took a while for us to get in and to get to where we are now. And so you feel like you've had to work really hard to get the care and to go through all the hoops to get that, to get the puberty blocker and gender affirming care. But we're kind of in limbo, really, because they canceled it, rescheduled it, and then moved it up. And with the current scene in our political environment, everyone's, I'm sure, heard in the United States about the judicial race that receives so much money and a lot of national attention. That really does have the possibility of making a huge impact on so many things in Wisconsin and certainly nationally too. So if the Musk-funded candidate, Brad Schimmel, wins, he's made it very clear, like totally stripping all of those rights back if it goes to the Supreme Court in Wisconsin. And then even other things like redistricting, that they will undo all of the redistricting that the previous we have a slim majority right now in the Supreme Court, and Judge Janet was really like necessary to undo all of that gerrymandering. So that helped us get a more accurate representation of Wisconsin, because it's not a red state, it's a purple state, and it's probably more blue than purple. So to get more accurate representation in our legislation, we redistricted to be more accurate, but they're now saying they'll definitely wipe all that out and gain some more seats in Wisconsin for Republicans, which will...
That is exactly what happened in North Carolina last year. Like,
Yeah.
we had an outside court who said, no, what the Republicans are trying to do, this is gerrymandering, straight up, straight down. It is not constitutional in your state constitution. Therefore, we're
Correct.
going to, and they gave them a second chance to come back with the maps. It still was gerrymandered, and they were like, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to have an independent body create maps. And we had the most, what I would say, probably the best outlook of what North Carolina really looks like, because we did 7 and 7. 7 Republican, 7 Democrat. And it typically is more of a 10-3 or 10-4 now split in North Carolina, with the GOP winning the 10. And it was always because of the map. So as soon as Republican control came back into place at the court last year, they said, oh, you know what? Gerrymandering is constitutional. We're going to go back to the old maps.
Yep.
So much so that in the last election, 3 of our candidates, including mine, didn't even run as a Democrat in 3 different areas because they knew there was no way they could. It had been lined so well, there was no way you could even get the winning vote. So we should be purple as well, and we show up as red.
There's so many states like that in the country, and Wisconsin's definitely one of those.
I'm feeling it's like that. Oh, I was saying, I have a feeling it's like that for more states than we realize. Because, I mean, there's entire districts here that are, I mean, it's cattle. You know what I mean? There's no people.
Right. It's so true. Yeah, so it'll be really interesting to see how things play out Tuesday this week. I think a lot of people are just kind of, on the edge of their seats waiting to see. Certainly, Brad Schimmelwin's abortion is going to be a big issue here. He's already made it clear that will be, we have like a law from the, like, what is it, the 1800s about like that all abortion's illegal under every circumstance, and they want to enact that. So, yeah.
Of course they would. Why would they want us to have rights for our own bodies? Like,
I know. So that's one that's on the table, adding more Republicans, redistricting, and obviously a very strict transgender ban. And it would become a very different state. So much is hanging on this race.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of making some plans, right?
What's that? I'm sorry, there's like a delay. It's hard to follow.
Okay. I said that, does that have you kind of making some long-term plans? Like for your own child?
Yeah, it does. Because like it makes it hard to figure out how to plan because there's so much uncertainty, right? And while it would be a huge relief for Susan Crawford to win, I don't know if that's going to be like the silver bullet to fix everything. Like, is one judge winning in Wisconsin going to save the United States? Maybe, but maybe not, right? So, yeah, it has me thinking of contingency plans, and I am looking at leaving the country at this point.
Now, I did see one thing. Wow. Because this has been probably a question on Jenny's mind, and I don't know that we really have talked about this one this much, but sanctuary cities. Because I know that Milwaukee has looked at trying to create themselves to establish themselves as a sanctuary city. And you have a lot of major cities throughout some states that are trying to create sanctuary. The problem is we don't know that if a state creates sanctuary, does that protect us from federal, right? And that's the scary thing right now for, I think, parents who are living in a state who says, hey, I'm absolutely going to create this sanctuary area that's safe for you and your kid and for your family. And you think that you can move to that area. But the truth is, we really don't know how it's going to play out. And we don't know if that state sanctuary is going to be protected under the federal law And for you, like thinking about where do you move, the contingency becomes, do I move to another state or do I move to another country?
Bingo. Yeah. And I feel like too, with the sanctuary cities, you run the risk of being almost like a sitting duck. Like all of the people that could be under attack are now in one place and easy to like, it's,
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's just a scary dystopian vision of how things could play out, in the United States. So I question it. Do I move to another state using up resources that are valuable because moving is a big expense and a big like logistical challenge and starting over is hard. And do I do that to go to another state to have and buy another 6 months, year, whatever it is of being able to survive only to be back where I am now or maybe worse and have fewer resources or options. So yeah.
So what are you using as your measuring stick for looking at where do you go?
Yeah, so I've been looking at this since December, January, thinking about it. And it's been increasing in my intensity as the Trump administration has become, or regime, I should say, has become more and more intense. So I'm looking at a place that's affordable, a decent cost of living, that has decent social services for people, like the affordable healthcare, and stable democracy, stable government, low likelihood of engaging in war, and transgender affirming care for minors. That does not leave a lot of countries in this world. But I found one.
Yeah.
That is good. That is good that we can find one. But I think that brings up, I think, something that we don't really ever necessarily get to the meat of, Jenni and I, on the show, but it does really point out when we're parents and you're trying. Jenni and I are lucky that our children are adults. So at this point, they kind of choose where they want to go, right? We have concerns. Yeah. We definitely still try and protect them, but it's not the same as having a kid that is a minor who is under the age of 18, and you're looking at, right, you want to make sure that they have access to resources. So when you think about those, and you're going, okay, so if I go to this state or if I go to this country, and where do I go? It really does become this daunting task of who is going to not only uphold their laws, but are going to continue to keep them in place. Because we can create a state right now that says, hey, I'm safe. And in 2 years from now, it's not safe anymore.
Right. And I think if you're oh, go ahead.
I think in countries like following suit in this way, you're seeing kind of at least what I've heard is that there's more and more of this alt-right and right-leaning and super conservative agenda kind of sweeping the globe. There are moments I question and I think, am I missing something? Are they right and I'm missing something? And I think about it and I'm like, nope, I just can't get on board with that. But I don't know. I'm with you. I don't know what's safe from moment to moment.
Right. And I think no one ever really knows what the future holds, to be honest. But I mean, we can just take our best guess based on the information we have at the time and being able to, provide context and see patterns. But and what level of risk you're willing to take on, I think. And you're right. I think in Europe, there is a far swing to the right in a lot of places. And, I think women and transgender folks are under attack in a lot of places right now. So it is hard to find.
It seems like there's like I hate to say it, there's like a patriarchal view that is trying to be forced back to the forefront, right? And the reason why, Jenni, I'm glad she circled over to the UK, is because we have talked about the EU, we have talked about the CAS review, which was created by NHS, and they were looking at, hey, let's look at why exactly so many people are going after gender affirming care, especially youth. And the CAS review kind of came back with enough pigeonhole details, right? Pick and choose what you want to I guess, proof the point that you want to make. And then they came out and said, hey, no minor should be getting this care. In fact, we have a Dr. Helen Weberly who's going to be coming from the UK onto our show and doing a series of episodes discussing how her career has been impacted by the CAS review, how she no longer is able to practice medicine, how she is no longer able to uphold patients and their gender affirming care because NHS decided kids don't need it. So when you have someone who's got an agenda like that, right? Because then we know that the CAS review was picked up by our GOP here in the US, and every time we have an anti-trans legislation bill that comes across our table, CAS review from the UK, which was picked from cherry-picked data from the UK, is suddenly used to establish whether or not we have rights for our kids in the US.
Mm-hmm.
Should we use our own data? A, is my first question. But B, that is where you start going, okay, so now you start seeing a political agenda. And that was the political agenda over in the EU that has now come over here and swept over here. And we are seeing it spread across the globe. So then the question becomes, okay, so for you as a mom who's looking at, do I go to another country? You're literally picking up a global map. It's not even Aaron Reed's legislation tracker anymore for the US. You're pulling up a whole global map to go, where can my kid go? Now, for those folks at home who don't have Carrie's position or my position or Jenni's position, this means that we are now trying to dig for information that the current administration has now wiped off the map.
Right.
And we're having to go search in places where it's been saved so that you know what is safe to go to now, because they didn't want you to know what was safe anymore. And I think that
And
it's even more
a very
impact.
familiar story.
Yeah.
It's
I joined
when you think back, I'm so sorry. I know I've got this delay. When you think back to, Nazi Germany, and some of the first things destroyed were these records of gender understanding, gender studies, and wiping that out.
Oh,
we lost her.
we may have lost her. She'll be back. She'll be back.
Well, yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say.
I know
I'll
what
be
she's
right back.
talking about.
I'll be RB.
BRB.
We did a study.
Got to put
we
my
did an
disturb.
episode called El Dorado.
BRB.
And El Dorado has a
BRB.
is pretty much
Be right
a
back.
documentary. And that, yeah, she's trying to switch screens, I think. But El
BRB.
Dorado kind of went through and talked about all that stuff from Germany and about how literally the first book burnings were the information, the research that Hirschfeld had created and been studying gender identity for at least the last 2 decades. And that was their very first ban burning, if I can get this out. Their first burning was literally all the research, and including that institute. And that was by, I think, some of Hitler's youth brigades. And that's the information that we're talking about. Like, people want to start removing information to say that a certain population doesn't exist. And just because you remove the information doesn't mean they don't exist. They've been here for as long as we've been keeping record. Like, we have historical records. We have written record back to the Copper Age, 3,000 years of trans people.
Yeah, anthropology is my background, and I was always interested in sex and gender. And, and of course, in Native America, there were the two spirits, and
yes,
and how so often people, that were not neatly fitting into a binary of male, female, gender, were considered special in a positive way, that they had a special connection to, the universe, or, something bigger than them, that they embodied two spirits or two different genders. So that made them like more powerful or more gifted than the rest of us.
Right. I believe they considered them not quite holy, but they did look at them as like shaman. My daughter, my youngest, had an art degree, and her art history project was on this Canadian artist who is two-spirited, who was going back and recreating historical paintings from like the 15, 16, 1700s that were painted in one way that kind of showed, honestly, that here were the natives attacking colonists that were coming in, and the truth of the matter was the opposite. And so this two-spirited person is now recreating these art pieces historically accurate to what was really happening, using the same types of materials that were used all those ages ago. So like the natural inks, the natural dyes, because these were some of the things my daughter was very interested in. And so it was very enlightening to listen and hear her reference, honestly, before I really started getting into this show and learning more about two-spirited people, but about how they were upheld as if they were shaman, as if they were embodied as literally the leaders of their tribe. And now we're trying to shove them into a closet and say they don't exist.
Yeah, but I mean, do you expect that anything less from people who don't believe that? You know what I mean? I get that. When it's,
I think they need to have the binary.
Like, well, we shouldn't do that to them. Like we literally said, white people literally sent them down the trail of tears. I don't expect them to care about what gender they are, aren't. I think for me, it just kind of comes down to, I love the history. I've learned some amazing things. I've learned about the history. I've learned about the science. And I still kind of come down to, I don't care. I don't care if it's brand new. I don't care if it's 1 million years old. I don't care if there's chemicals in your brain that do it or if it's hormones. I don't care. Trans people exist. They deserve human rights. They deserve dignity. They deserve to not be attacked. Everybody deserves bodily autonomy. And what else is there to say beyond that?
Right.
But
wrap it up in a big perfect bow.
Arguing these points to people as if we have to try to elevate trans people. Well, they were two-spirit and they were revered and they were sacred. Okay, what if they weren't? Are they still human?
Right.
I'm so tired of feeling like we have to explain this to the world. And it's such a different experience when it's your child. And it's somebody you love more than anything. And you go, you don't understand. This is just a person.
Right.
Just leave my kid alone.
Right. This is who they are. And the kind of person they are has existed, since we have records. So why do we have to defend it? Why is it a thing?
Right.
But yeah, they are definitely under attack. And I think it's that masculinity thing, going back full circle, that it is like the death of the patriarchy. It's dying gasps, to control. And maybe, because it does seem to me that of the trans population, that it's trans women, trans females that are getting all the hate. Like that executive order specifically was to protect women against them. And there's so much to unwrap or like untangle with that, like that they're protecting women, like this masculinity, like they need they need to have women underneath them for protection in order to control them. And
the only thing they're protecting is masculinity. The only thing they're protecting really is patriarchy, not even masculinity. What the hell is masculinity?
No, it's to control. It's to control.
It sure is.
And it's weak. It's like they can't get people to follow them by being leaders or providing necessary protection. They have to create this demon of trans women as this like attacking them, and they need to be protected. And it doesn't even make sense. Like what world I would ever be afraid of. I could be in a bathroom with 50 trans women, and I would never think one of those women are going to rape me.
Never.
No, I would be like,
we are still afraid that men are going to come into the bathroom, right? We as women are still afraid that men are going to come to the restroom to hurt us. But where are the laws against men coming into a female restroom? There is not a single one, but you'll go after trans women.
Right.
And Jenni and
I saw Funny Comedian.
We both have trans men, and because we have trans men, as sons, we don't have to worry about that level of scrutiny nearly as much as parents who are parents of trans women. Like we just have it easier. It's not
seeing more and more
that we have to worry with,
who are just not their ideal of what is feminine, and they're being followed into bathrooms. So it becomes more and more of this defining femininity, having a standard of femininity. My stepmother is like 6 foot tall. She is a broad, tall. She wears shoes that are larger than my dad's, or around my dad. She would be considered a masculine woman. Nobody's following her into the bathroom. You know, here
Right.
I stand, 5'2", 118 pounds. Am I feminine enough? Is that feminine? Where do we start drawing lines? You know, if I don't wear makeup and I have a couple chin hairs, am I feminine enough? And that's really the purpose, is to
Have you
just
had
continue.
hysterectomy? Are you still a woman?
Am I still a woman? If my
Yeah, it's
system
very
never had-
Handmaid's Tale-ish, isn't it?
huh?
Like trying to keep women in line for reproductive control or who knows what. But I did see a funny skit with the comedian talking about the trans women in bathrooms. I don't know if any of you have seen that, but like the funniest thing is like imagining this male criminal who wants to come into bathrooms to rape women and then sees the door sign and it's like women only. And they're like, oh, shucks, I can't go and rape the women. Like it's
sign didn't stop them.
No, like it's so dumb. Like
yeah.
Well, I mean, and then it goes back to we need protecting, and I'm kind of like, what I need
from
protecting
who?
is from you.
Right.
You. Talk to me.
That's who I need protecting from.
Well, men need to create that narrative that like they will protect you from all the other bad men because they're the good man, right?
Yeah.
Like without the bad man, they don't have their role of being necessary to a woman. So they're not going to shut down when men are being jerks and men are like, they're not going to keep their guys in line because they need that over there looking bad so they can look good.
Yep.
Right.
And deep down, they agree with the jokes and they agree with the humor and they agree with the sentiment, or they would call it out. Exactly. Especially when you get to a certain age. I can see why we're very socialized as younger people to get along and go along with, and we are trying to fit in and figure out who we are. But once you reach a certain age, ladies, am I right? I don't give a crap anymore. I will, if somebody says something sideways to me, I'm going to be like, that's the dumbest shit I've ever heard. Never say that to me again. And
if they go far enough, disconnect. Bye. Right. Sorry.
Like y'all handle each other. We're all tired of hearing about male loneliness epidemic. You know why you're lonely? Because you suck. I'm not lonely. I'm a delight. People love being around me. I'm not lonely. If you're lonely, you suck. Quit sucking.
You're lonely because nobody wants to be around you.
Right. That sounds lonely. Quit being insufferable. Like,
accept us. Accept us.
I think, they just don't have the like emotional intelligence or social like.
They're capable. I know men who have that emotional intelligence. I know men who are those great men.
Yep. There are good men out there that do. Absolutely.
Can't do it. Yes, you can. You just don't. Yeah. So I don't feel sorry for you.
Yeah, it's really the state of men. It's really wild. And why they're so worked up about trans women, I don't understand. But it is a scary...
I think they're afraid of what it means for the future of them. I think they're afraid of what it means for their future.
Yes.
You know, when you think that your only value lies in that masculinity and in that power, then the thought of anyone possibly bringing that down has got to be terrifying. But you think they'd be like, cool, you go be a woman, I'm going to keep being this. And they don't. And it just absolutely upsets them so much. I think they're afraid it's going to get to their sons and then their sons won't be masculine. And what will that say about them? And
maybe they're afraid of their own feminine energy that they never really felt comfortable expressing. And so they stuff it and they don't want to express it. So like letting that out of the box just stirs up a lot of uncomfortable feelings they have within themselves that they've stuffed.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we all have feminine and masculine qualities. And for women, it's one thing to be called a tomboy. It doesn't have quite the, social
of course, because
negativity.
Boys and males are perceived as better. It's
But you want to be a boy, you throw like a girl, or you sound like
a girl. Don't cry, you're not a girl. Right.
So that they realize those feminine qualities they have within themselves as bad.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's very possible. And that depends on how they've been raised too. If they've been raised at showing sensitivity.
Right.
having feelings.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I grew up like on, some of my mother's side, like the men, no, you did not show feeling.
Right.
Did not. Absolutely not. That was weakness. In fact, to ask for help for anything was a weakness.
Oh yeah. Oh my
Whether you were
gosh.
male or female. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
it was brutal in the South.
Yeah.
Brutal.
How many men do we
and I
lose to suicide because of that? Because they're afraid to reach out for help.
Maybe
And I mean,
all of
that's,
this is just
I'm
a
like-
backlash against feminism, like, because women have made strides. Women
Yeah,
have
it's our
done
fault.
so well now that we could own a house, get our credit cards, go to college. We don't need to be married. We can file for divorce without fault.
Yeah.
Now we're in a position where we're owning more homes and we're more educated and we have better friendships, and they're lonely and they don't
necessary.
and they're
They're
trying
not
to
necessary.
control now.
If we want to have babies, we can go to a sperm bank.
Right.
If we want to be single
I mean,
parents,
that still
we
makes them
can.
a little
If we
bit
want to run
necessary.
our own business, we can.
Right.
If we don't want to get married or have kids, we don't have to.
Right.
And that is something.
But all
and
the things
granted,
remember are things that men have always been able to say. How many like
Right.
famous men have we seen that just bounce from girlfriend to girlfriend and they're a playboy and that's awesome? And but for us it's when is she gonna settle down? She's gonna become this old hag, or they look at
she's going to be
Taylor
old
Swift
maid
like,
with 50 cats.
right. She'd be a disaster because she's had all these boyfriends and no husbands. All those things are things that men have always been able to do, allowed to do, and nobody has had a word to say about it.
Yeah, I think they're really uncomfortable with women no longer needing them, and women outperforming them in many ways, and women taking leadership roles and becoming more educated and smarter. I mean, we always were smart, but now we're excelling academically and
Well, I mean,
that's the reason why they're trying to just shut it down.
Yeah.
Like, God bless.
They want us at home, barefoot, pregnant,
Right.
No, you
less
don't.
educated, under our thumbs.
No, boy.
Yeah, right. You don't want me at home.
I mean, drunk.
Whew,
Yeah, so I
no.
think it's just that gender construct enforces their role as men, and to see another man and to
Right.
them that they view as a man being feminine or like saying I'm a woman, that it just blows up their masculinity.
I feel like to me, and I've said this to Jenny before, it's like they feel like they're losing one of the guys, like one of the club, right? Like, we've lost it to the other side. And it's just like,
Exactly.
human beings. But that is how they feel. Like they have lost a person to the other
I
side.
think so, but I think they also take all their self-hate for their feminine qualities and direct them at the man who's expressing them.
Yep.
Sure.
That's where the hate comes from, that I hate that I can't handle my emotions. And I've had this weakness in myself that I stuff or drink away or whatever they do with it. And then this person is doing that. It's like they feel shame, even maybe it like brings out stuff in them that they direct at that.
Well, I mean, that's what the overreaction, that's what that projection's from, right? Is that insecurity from themselves.
The worst ones are the ones too that are a little freaky. Like if you look at the moral police of the Republican Party in terms of sexuality, and there are pedophiles, and they're the worst ones.
Yeah.
And I think it's often when
they
people
shut down Grindr, y'all.
I know, it's the anti-gay ones or the gay ones.
Just
they hate that thing in themselves, and that's why they're like, you can't be that way.
Right. Just go.
Well, you can do it. Just be closeted. Just be closeted.
A grown boy.
Like we are.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Because I'm closeted. You should be closeted. Right.
I really do think that's a thing. I really do think that, it's kind of and isn't it a little bit understandable? Like it's hard to be happy for someone and like someone and celebrate someone when they're able to do something you're not. I can understand that. I know what it's like to resent what I can't have. I know what it's like to want that. And maybe I see somebody that I don't think deserves it as much as I do, and I'm mad at them for having it. I think that's pretty human. I can understand that, but now someone has allowed them to direct all of their hate and anger and frustrations about things in life. And it really comes down to women. It's women's fault. And because of women and feminism and women and this, then now our boys are emasculated and our boys are turning into girls. And
Yep.
it's, it's just so female directed. And when you can be mad at somebody and point to them directly and take out all your anger, listen, I'm going to tell you, I love that feeling. I love to be able to take all my anger and fear and worst feelings out on something that's kind of targeted, because I feel powerful. I feel like I've gotten that all out of me. It does feel good. So maybe the solution is helping them to discover that, yeah, but that you're directing at people. Like, you're not directing it at, an idea, or I know they think they are. I think they think they're directing it at an ideology, but you're hurting people. And we have to draw the line there, right? I can be mad at some systems and some policies. There go my dogs. I'm going to mute.
I think what you said about the ideology, like, I think that's part of it, right? Like, they want to say it's an ideology, and it's not an ideology. They don't understand it's not an ideology. It's somebody's truth. They've made up that word, that it's an ideology, and that everybody is like being bent into this ideology. Kids are being groomed. Parents are being groomed. We've all lost our minds when it's something that's always been here.
Yeah.
But because they're the ones that get to direct the language, they're the ones that get to write the orders, they're the ones with the pen. We all look like, the parents of trans kids look like we're trying to be reactive, when all we want is for our kids to have access and to be protected and to have the same rights as everybody else.
Right.
All of our children were born in the US of A. They are all American citizens.
Yeah.
They all deserve the rights to be able to access healthcare, to go to school, to be uplifted and supported within their communities and their classrooms without worried about state sanctioned or federally sanctioned hate.
Right.
Yeah.
I think too, what's
That's
so hard.
That's where we lived.
Yeah, I think what's so hard too is that with the amazing healthcare developments that, there is gender affirming care now, right? So, I mean, there's certainly many of us remember a time when there wasn't, or it looked very different. And so it's such an amazing gift, but then to have a child, to give it to them and then take it away, like, I don't think people understand how devastating that is to put a child on puberty blockers, and that will delay puberty, right? So puberty stops and they're in a holding pattern, and then to just strip it away, well, then puberty starts and they have to go through male. That's maybe not quite as bad, but let's say you put them on the gender affirming hormones. So you have a male child who's identifies as female, put a puberty blocker in, and then later start female hormones. And as they start developing female traits, breasts and female form and voice, and look past for female, 17 years old, then you cut them off.
Yeah.
What happens? Facial.
I don't think they care, but I don't think they're really paying attention to that is what we were talking about.
And that's the stuff I'm having to think about. Right.
Yeah.
That's what parents have to go through, is like, how is my kid being supported? Okay, I've gone through all the loops, all the hoops, all the jumps. We've gone and lined up with this doctor. We finally got our kid supported. Our kids' frame of mind is better. They're excelling. They're doing better socially. Yep. They're doing better within the family unit. And then all of a sudden the government goes and snatches it away. And you're looking at your kid going, I did everything I could. And now what do I don't know how to help you. And as a parent, that's extremely frustrating to say, everybody else can have access to this treatment.
Right.
But because you feel a certain way, you can't.
Right. Because any cisgender boy who's got too much breast tissue can go get that removed. Nobody bats an eyelash. Oh, we don't want him to feel bad about himself. That's the only reason you're doing it.
Right.
It's the only reason. That is 100% cosmetic gender affirming care. And it's absolutely fine for them. But because
the nose jobs, any of it.
Nose jobs. Breast reduction.
And then women getting implants because they are too flat and they want to look more feminine.
Right.
Right? So everybody
But
else
really
can get the care, but our
Right.
kids can't because of who they are. And I
Right.
don't think it's okay for a government to be able to come in and tell anyone that you have a right. Well, what you get to do with your body?
Right.
My hard stance is bodily autonomy, and I really started, my root core is women's rights, and so bodily autonomy 100,000%, and then it moved from there to death with dignity and people being able to make hard choices with terminal illness, and then it moved to veterans and whether or not they got access to care other than their state Department of Veterans Affairs, or whether they had to go to Bethesda, Maryland to go get their treatment at NIH because that was the only place that was available for the people who fought for our country and our rights. And so all these things started to line up. And then, because I'd gone to 2 different nursing programs and dropped out taking care of my dad, by the time my son came out, I started to realize, okay, we weren't being educated about these groups in school. We weren't being educated on how to uphold their autonomy. And local people, residents that I knew and were connected to, were going into local hospitals and having a range of experience. And what I realized was it was because they weren't being educated on how to uphold bodily autonomy of the LGBTQ community when they were in the hospital, when they were in inpatient care. And if you're not taught how to uphold something, what do you use? Your bias, your discrimination, whatever else, your experience and your opinion. It's not based on fact, it's based on your opinion. And if you've never been around trans people and your experience is that they're evil and they're bad and they're perverse and they're groomers and they're pedophiles, that's what you're going to believe because you don't have anything else to go on. Which is why Jenni and I started this show, was little conversations to kind of have ripple effects of impact of, wait a minute, but I know someone who, no, that's not true. And that's not true. So that people had little feed bites to go back and say, you're confused. Let me help clear this up. Because I think that's a lot of it, is that people don't understand. People without that experience, they don't know.
Because we're all pretty normal moms, right? I mean, y'all seem normal. We're all educated. We've all, sought careers and we've taken care of our bills and we've, got married. We made babies. I mean, we did the damn thing that they all wanted us to do. And we're not, listen, I love me a blue-haired liberal. But we're not sitting here before you, these crazy blue-haired liberal ladies that are going to, there's that stereotype. And it's fair because I have a stereotype for them as well. But I wish people understood we're just normal families. We're the same as you. Our kids, maybe got put in the wrong body. I don't even know. I don't even care. Like, don't worry about it. He's going to wear different clothes. Right. Never going to impact you. But when people meet us and we can start to have those conversations, I interrupt people all the time now and say, I went to a work function not too long ago, and there were 2 transphobic things that happened right in front of me. And the first was that a gentleman there, it was a company event, put on a new company vest. They give like corporate swag. And he was putting on the new company vest and he had grabbed a vest from the women's pile and he put it on. He was like, this fits weird. And somebody said, well, you've got on one of the women's, that are cut differently. And he said, well, maybe it identifies as a men's vest. And I always stop now. And of course, everybody's laughing. I always stop now and just say, excuse me, someone I love is trans. Please don't do that. Happened again at dinner, some transphobic bullshit. And excuse me, someone I love is trans. Please don't do that. And it does make people stop. I have not had a single person, and I am in 100% red Oklahoma. I have never had a person say, well, fuck you and the trans person you love. Every single person is like, oh, some of them say sorry, most of them don't, but they don't do it again. And the more of them,
they take their nonsense and they walk away with it.
Like, right.
Okay, maybe let me go take it to somebody who doesn't know a trans person because they don't know reality.
Right.
They're like, oh, I won't do that one again. Read the room. Wrong audience.
They probably don't. They probably do it as soon as I walk away. But
no, somebody else, right, but not in this audience.
They do it to the next person. They don't do it to me again.
Yeah, wrong audience.
Wrong stinking audience.
Yeah.
What do you think is the biggest challenge right now that you're dealing with, Carrie? Is it, is it kind of deciding where to go or what to do, or is it the care itself?
I think it's the uncertain future and trying to make decisions now to set us up
Right.
for continuity of care. Because I worry, as I said earlier, when we start the female hormones, she needs to have access to those. We can't just start and stop.
Right.
Like, I mean, especially as if she's on them for a while, like, 6 months, a year, like it's going to create some permanent bodily changes. And so, like, what do we do now? Right? Like, so much is left. I mean, we know the intent of the federal government. We know what they want to do. And our protection in Wisconsin is hanging by a thread. Like, how long will, and then Medicaid too. Like, that's how I get healthcare for my daughter. So, like, what if insurance doesn't cover it, whether it's Medicaid or personal insurance, like private insurance, like paying for that out of pocket with the healthcare costs in the United States, that's nearly impossible. The puberty blocker implant, $75,000.
What?
Yeah.
What is in it?
It's like some drug in an implant, but like it's gold. No, so like made out of pure gold. I don't really
platinum something.
Diamond lined. I don't really know, but I didn't see the price. A friend who got one for her son said that when the insurance company mailed the, you see the bills, that's what they billed her insurance company. And I looked online and I saw prices ranging from like 50,000 to 100,000. So depending on what year and what brand or whatever.
I refuse to believe that it costs that much to make that thing. I refuse to believe it.
I mean, Spartacus, what was it? Spartacus told us it was like 200,000 is what they had told him. And they were willing to get the loan, but the problem was once if they had been approved by that time, it was like their clinic that their child had gone to had come back by that point and was like, we're not doing gender affirming care anymore. So it wouldn't have mattered that they had gotten the loan anyway. But they were talking, I think, like 200,000 for their child to get the treatment that they needed.
My husband went and got.
She's gone.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
I'm amazed because usually the next thing that I literally just put my phone on do not disturb earlier. It never works. This is my life. My husband can go get a testosterone implant pellets in his butt, and I think it was like $1,200. It came to something like $100. It came out to like $100 a month for pellets in his behind. What are you talking about? $75,000.
I have no idea. So I just know what I've seen online and what people have said, but I think it is asinine. And so just trying to, strategize the future plan and what I need to do now to be, set up for her in the future. Like if that care is no longer covered by insurance, how do I move to another state, find a new job, find a new house, and deal with the expense of moving, and then pay for her treatment?
Right.
And I have another child. She's not my only child, right? Like, it's how do I do all of this?
How do you balance it all?
I don't know.
And I think part of that too, like when you talk about the access to care, everybody wants to focus on the physical, right? But what we're really talking about is if she were to start hormone or puberty blockers and then suddenly be cut off from that, what we're really talking about is the mental impact that then becomes 100%. On these kids. And especially for kids who were struggling, who then finally get to a place where they feel like they're seen, where they feel like they're supported, and then that is being ripped away from them.
Yanked away from them.
Parent, you're juggling, okay, do I go to this state who may cut it off in 2 years? This state may cut it off in 4 years. Do I go to this country who you seem like you're stable right now, but the next election cycle that I won't be able to elect or vote in because I'm visiting, what will that do to my kid? Like, I mean, there are so many dynamics that I think people really ignore. I think the mental impact is the biggest one. I think it's the mental impact of the kids that everybody says that we're trying to harm. that we know that they have the highest suicidal rates. We know that they have the highest suicidal ideation. We know the highest mental health disorders, the highest substance abuse disorders, the highest homeless youth.
Right. And I think the average life expectancy for a trans woman is like in her 30s.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Yeah.
But you know what? Well, I want to say, you know, I know all these trans women who are older, but those people generally transitioned later.
Mm-hmm. I think,
you know, we are literally fighting for people's lives.
Yeah.
We are out here, this idea that, you know, I'm fighting for some kind of ideology, or that I'm fighting so that there's no gender anymore and we're all just these ambiguous, you know, whatever. No, man, or androgynous is the word.
Right.
Ambiguous.
We're all non-binary, androgynous.
Right, so we're just all non-binary.
Right.
That's the future. No, man, I'm trying to keep human beings alive.
Right.
These are just people's lives.
Just live and let live. People want to let them be who they are.
It is not hyperbole. This is life and death. And I'm done being nice about it. This is life and death. I don't have any more kindness about this.
Yeah. And to play on like what happens when you like stop the treatment psychologically, of course, that's devastating. Everything you thought you had is now like turned upside down and slipping away from you. But then, I mean, just thinking of women going through menopause and the effects of hormones, like just to cut somebody cold off of hormones, that has detrimental effects physically and on somebody's moods and emotions. And like what on top of the depression of your identity being stripped away and your care being stripped away, and then you have a crazy roller coaster ride of hormones going on too. And if you're a female and you have breasts and you pass and you start like growing facial hair and like your voice starts changing, like just to imagine how like awful that would be for like a poor
like more cruelty
17-year-old or 19-year-old or whatever, to just not be able to, their body just would betray them essentially.
Absolutely. I was gonna see what Julie was up to. We're okay.
Okay. Is she ready?
I don't know. I think she's just hanging out.
Okay. We do have a special. We have a special guest that's going to be coming on. There she is in the corner. Hi, Julie. We were contacted a little while ago about a documentary by Julie, who is in the background with Jenni. Okay, Jenni's going to give her chair. And so we were talking about, Julie had reached out and was just talking about a documentary that she was working on that kind of looked at trans rights and parents and how they were dealing with this under the current administration. What is it you want to know, I guess, from us? Like looking at from an outsider's perspective, what do you see? What does it look like from your purview for parents in the U.S. right now?
It looks extremely scary. When I started contacting people, I knew it. I mean, I knew like the executive orders, etc., and that's what prompted this. But I didn't realize how scary it was. I mean, people always have concerns about appearing on camera and talking to the media or not. Lots of people distrust the media on both sides of the aisle, but I was not expecting this level of fear. And then people gave me examples. It's like, I'm not saying it's unfounded. It seems to be, there's all the reasons to be read. And I appreciate it even more that you guys are talking to me. But yeah, I was not expecting that level of fear. That's
Would you say that is the same level that you see that's happening over in Europe for parents over there? As far as like, I know how there's been a lot of gender affirming bans that have kind of been made for minors over there as well. Are you seeing, I guess, some of the same kind of actions you feel like that are going on here in the US?
I missed part of the question.
Are you seeing that happening over where you are?
Oh, got it. It's, for now, it feels like where I'm from, it's mostly words. It's mostly people having this kind of speech that you might have started hearing in the US a while back. I always feel like things that happen here end up happening in Europe, but with a delay. And so the kind of like, oh, they're just going too far, you know? Like you hear quite a bit of that now, that before that, talking about transgender people was not especially a topic, and it has become a topic as well. And with some people being like, oh, but they're just going too far, or like it's the schools they're too woke and they're indoctrinating them. And yeah, but we don't have a different political system, so yeah, I mean, at the same time, there's many places that are very inclusive and that are reinforcing to being inclusive under the right government. We're not saying stuff drastic, as mad, as intense as we're seeing here.
As that we're seeing here. And I think everybody's kind of in a way probably in the world watching. You know, the US is kind of an example right now, like how far can it slide and how quickly, and what will this look like? And do we want to repeat the same thing in our countries? Like, honestly, like I feel like we are kind of we're the example. We're the ugly stepchild at the moment.
Cautionary tale, like this is what could happen if you don't take democracy seriously.
Yeah, exactly. And that's very scary for us. And I think even Carrie, you know, she was looking at trying to go overseas, and here she is, the same thing, like looking at different countries and kind of trying to like make the same. Okay, so am I going to be able to get over there? Is it going to be safe? Is it going to be inclusive for my kid? What does the government system look like now? Where's it headed? Because that is the question that parents, we have to start making is even if we relocate, what is in place right now, we're not promised that in 4 years for our kids.
Right.
And I think that's the reason why there is so much fear around this. And especially in the US, Trump came in, he had been warning that this is what he was going to go after. And I think a lot of us knew that who were parents of trans kids, I think we all kind of saw the writing on the wall. We knew. That's why Jenni and I had started TransParents a year ago. We knew last November. We were like, we have a year from the next election. If we're going to try and make headway, we need to start having these conversations now. That there's nothing different between our kids. We're trying to be like every other parent out there and make the best choices for our kids. But this is where the government is now coming into play and getting in between that, which I think is interesting for a country that wants to say that their government should be out of everybody's personal lives, and yet you're interjecting into our most personal decisions. And that, yeah, I feel like we look like the joke. But that's okay. Seeing who's in office, I can understand why people would possibly look at us right now that way.
I think,
we're not all that crazy, but yeah.
I think what brought it home for me, the level of fear, was I have a friend in San Francisco, and I learned they were leaving the country, and I asked them why, and they're trans, which I was not necessarily aware, like that was not obvious. I knew they were non-binary. That's what I knew, and they told me, well, my grandparents waited too long in Poland, and I'm not going to wait too long. I'm just not going to wait too long. And that was the moment, like a sobering moment where I'm like, yeah, okay. And I'm not like, yeah, hopefully everybody, including them, doesn't like hopes, really feels like, yeah, it won't come to that. But like, that's what they said.
But we've seen it before.
That's what you do.
I mean, we've seen it before.
I think everything is pointing to that's what's happening. And I agree 100%. And that's why I'm like, all systems go to get out of here. I have an offer on my house today that I have to like either agree or not to sell. And once I do that, I've got to do something, right? I know I talked about France with you, Julie. I think I'm going to head to Uruguay, though. It seems like a really good fit. It's got like stable democracy, and they're very trans-friendly, live and let live, and far away from all the mess everywhere in Europe and here. So, yeah, it's crazy to think that this is where I am in life. I never thought I would be leaving the country like this.
Especially not to protect our kids. I
No.
think that's the hard decision. My older son, like my son is an adult, but he still lives at home, and my younger son is still at home, and they go everywhere together.
Hmm.
And in ways, I feel like my middle child feels like he is always going to be with his older sibling as that bodyguard to make sure you're not going to mess with him. And I don't think that my kid thought he was going to be his brother's keeper for his entire life. And he's kind of even, and he's okay with that. Like, if that's the way it turns out, he's perfectly okay with that. Like, we could be brothers for life. We'll just live in the same apartment. Like, you have your space, I have my space. But at the same time, they're making a decision that they may actually stay together so that one of my children is safe. And that's insane to me that my 25-year-old is making a choice to stay with his 27-year-old brother to make sure that his 27-year-old brother exists. Yeah, it just it throws, and Carrie, like, moving to another country, like, I kind of put that on my children. It was like, we don't have the money to necessarily move. And it was like, my son could go and claim asylum somewhere, but then he's on his own. And then what happens if the rules in that country change and I'm not there? Like, Mama Bear and me was just kind of like, I kind of want you to stay closer to me, please, so I can stand in front of you or block the view, or I don't know, raise my fist at somebody, something.
Yeah.
Because I just don't think our kids should have to fight that fight.
No, I don't think so either. And it's scary out there in the world. And I will say I belong to some expat groups, and the one in particular, Uruguay, is very appealing for LGBTQ people. The posts in there are daily, people, Americans looking to go there. It's like, and so now there's that added, like you were saying, with waiting too long, and that they left Poland, that they got out, and that there is that worry that if things suddenly do make a turn, if things do become really unstable here and frightening, not only would it be difficult to leave, but maybe there would be a lot of people trying to leave, and things would get shut down. So there's this fear of waiting too long. But then there's the fear of doing it like prematurely, and then say things make a turnaround and it's overblown, or who knows. I guess I can always come back, right? But maybe just taking a vacation for a while.
It's an extended vacay.
Yeah, a sabbatical. We're just gonna go away for a year, live abroad. But yeah, I mean, the underlying reality is that I'm trying to calculate ahead of time how to best use what resources I have and give myself the most options for whatever happens, that I have options. So if I sell my house now, I have cash in hand. That gives me more options than not selling it now and waiting. So right. Even if I decide not to leave, well, it sucks I sold my house, but I have money from that I can have more options to either rent or buy or do something. But sitting on the house and waiting, I may have fewer options.
Right. It's kind of a to go. And we had a father from Colorado about a month ago. They had come on, and that was their choice. They left the country to go to another country to kind of wait and see what was happening and where was going to be the best place to land. But they knew they needed to leave. And it was like, but you're in Colorado. And this was a family that had been in Texas. And when some of this I can't remember how many years, it had been at least 4 or 5 years ago before this, that their employer had been like, they knew that they had a trans child. And they were kind of like, I don't know that Texas is the friendliest place. We have a position opening up in Colorado. We're going to put you there because we feel like that's safer for your family. And so here is this family who moved to Colorado for safety. A few years later, now made the choice to literally leave the country.
Do you know where they went? What country they went to?
No. Actually, they didn't even tell us where they were going. Like, when we had him on, they were going out the next day. And they were having problems with their passports, and their congressman had kind of gotten involved last minute to help them get the passport, because like the parents had gotten their passports back, but the child hadn't. And it was like the passport, it had come back saying, are you sure you want to be female, male? And they were like, we want female because that's how they present. And so the congressman got that order in place, got that to them and like handed it to them on a Friday. They came on the show on Sunday and they flew out of the country on Monday, the next day.
Wow.
Right. And that, I mean, that's just how serious that parents are just going, I'm not going to wait. Because like you said, we don't know what is too long to wait. And what keeps, honestly, someone who is heavy with a pen from coming after parents of trans kids and writing something in executive order that now criminalizes us.
We go to El
Criminalizes
Salvador.
our decisions for our children. I mean, that, like, this is the decision. Like, my child is an adult, so I don't have to worry about that. But parents of children who are under the age of 18, this could be a concern that you're going to be locked up just as much. Because
Right.
all you're trying to do is support and love your kid, but they say that it's not love, it's abuse.
Hmm. I think that's coming.
It's very daunting.
I
Very
think that's
daunting.
coming.
I do too. I don't know that he can get away with that one. I really think that one will probably get more pushback than some of the other laws that he's written. Because we have too many parent rights laws right now in the country. Like, if you want parents' rights about what they can teach my kid in school, well, then shouldn't I get a choice on their health care too?
Yeah,
If I can
but
demand their teacher give me their entire protocol of what they're going to teach the kid over a course an entire year, every document, every book, where every resource comes from, if I can accuse my principal of your teaching ideology, but I can't make the choice for my kid and their health care as a parent, that doesn't make sense. And so I think there's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of rhetoric that goes on, and it's meant to gaslit. It's meant to divide. It's meant, honestly, to create this misinformation, disinformation storm so that we don't push back on it, so that we go quiet, so that we tell our kids to hide, and so that it disappears in the closet for another decade and makes them feel better. But I know we are coming close to our time. Not sure if I'm hearing Jenni over in the corner kind of saying,
Yeah, you are.
yeah, I figured. Okay. Cool. So Jenni, did you want to come back on and say anything?
Thank you.
Thanks,
You're
Julie.
welcome. Thank you, Julie. Thank you.
Carrie, I'm so glad you were here. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm glad we've met. I wish nothing but the very best for you, for your daughter. I hope you stay in touch. And, I'm just glad there's more and more of us willing to speak out and to do whatever we can. There's a lot of people who can't leave the country. There's a lot of people who can't even leave their state.
Right.
And as we've kind of talked about on here, where do you go?
Right.
A blue state might be safer for now, but it doesn't make it safe. And that's all we want for our kids. I wish more people understood that we just love our kids the same way everybody loves theirs. We just want our kids to be safe. And we have such an opportunity to love people and get to know people and grow in the magic that is this human experience. And
I really hope that people stand up for us and our kids too, because I feel like it's so dangerous for us to be out there on the front lines as parents with it possibly being criminalized. Like, I'm even nervous about what I'm doing today. And for kids and transgender people to be fighting this, it's too much of an ask. They should be not on the front lines. And
right.
This
is not fair. I hope some allies step up and really stand up for this group.
I think there are more of us. I think it's coming more and more steadily. And I think honestly, the more division that is being created, I think you are having more people kind of sober up to the idea that this is way too much.
Yeah.
Because we are seeing, like, the polls that have come across the country have already kind of said that there are a lot of people who don't agree with this anti-trans agenda that the Trump administration is coming up with. They don't support it. They feel like this is going too far. So,
and I have to do more than say that. We're all capable of picking
Yes.
up the phone and making a phone call. We're all capable of writing a dang letter, writing a dang email. Yeah, not everybody can go protest. Not everybody can go do whatever, but every single person is capable of standing up and saying something when they hear something said. And it really is just to take more people. It is a courageous act every single day for so many people to just get up and live so fully and so publicly and invite us into their lives and make us part of that journey is so courageous. And every single one of us has to be more courageous. Yeah, there's something to be lost for it, you know? There really is. I worry about the things I'm going to lose, but I'm just, my kid could lose his life. And what do I have that's more valuable than that?
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Okay, well, we're going to wrap. Carrie, thank you so much. When you do get settled, you have our contact information because we would love to talk with you once you get settled so that you can
Okay.
tell us how y'all are doing. And
Yeah.
Julie, we wanted a special thank you to Julie and her team for coming on today and asking some
Thank you,
questions and
Julie.
being part of our show. And with that, folks, we will see y'all. This will be a pre-recorded, so when you see this next week, this was pre-recorded. So if we're not answering you in the comments section, don't get offended. That's why. With that, we'll see y'all next time. Thank you for being here. Bye.
Love, love, smooch, smooch. Bye.
Bye.